everyone. It's me, the original Mysterious Jackson here, and I thought I just did this live. I'm just hanging out. So how's everybody's night going so far? Hope everybody's having a good one. Because I definitely am. And shout out to Helen. She came in my life and helped me out. And really showed support. And be sure to follow her because she is a sweetheart and she's really kind. She's been nothing but kind to me since I came on here. And I thought it would be nice for me to come back here and just say what I wanted. I just want to do these lives and show people that, that I'm real, because there's people that don't think just because my account isn't verified that it's not a real person controlling it. But happy to disappoint everyone that thought I wasn't real. It really is me controlling my TikTok, posting videos, and doing the skits and everything. People think that because people like to hack other people's accounts that it's not me controlling my life and making the videos. Well, I'm right here doing this live and talking to all of you. So welcome in. It's nice to see all of you. Hey, Helen, how's it going, sweetheart? Thanks for earlier. I hope everybody's having a good night. And thank you all for joining and listening. So I'm pretty sure all of you want to know how I approach my voice acting approaches. I am so very much feeling so much better. So for those of you who want to know how I approach when I do a voice acting role, when they give me a character or a description of a character, they tell me where the character's from and where the character is in the scene, and I can just go off of that. Say, like, for instance, thanks for the likes, Helen. Say, like, for instance, if I'm doing a character for, say, for instance, Street Fighter or something, they'll say, you're playing voice, oh, hello. You're playing voice A versus voice B. And they'll have to say, like, hey, this person is a protagonist and an antagonist. And as the voice actor, it's up to me to make the voice as good as it is. Like, if they want me to play a villain that is fully grown and sinister and ominous,
then I would have to talk like this. And how does it really go? You really think that you can control me right now?
And that's pretty much how it goes from right there. And they'll be like, great, that's great, but could you make it a little more darker? And then I would have to
go a little more like this, with the more sinister laughing. Is that all you can do?
and that's pretty much how it is. It can go either way. It can go heavy, it can be light. There's an unreleased Michael Jackson skit that I made. I'm gonna release it here on TikTok. I just have to put it in and post it on here. It's not quite done yet, but you'll see what it is when I release it. And see me, I originally came on here. Well, sorry about that. There's a notification. I originally came on here back when I turned 31, 3 days after my birthday on the 18th. And I met a lot of great people on here. Savage Alpha, or as I call her, Shelly Beer. She was one of the first people I met. Wild Child, or as I call her, Wild Card. And Justin, aka J Dog. Christy Bear, Courtney, Anna Banana, and many others I've met that I hold near and dear. And I originally came here because I feel that I have something to share with an audience. I'm not doing this for any type of money gain or to get instantly famous. I came on here because there's a lot of things that I have to offer that I think would be beneficial. Pumpkin, how are you? Aw, thank you, sweetheart. Pumpkin, that's so sweet of you. Oh my goodness. Follow Michelle, seriously. She's a sweetheart, and she invites anybody to come up in her live stream and talk. And she's a real sweetheart. She likes to get to know the people all over the world. Oh. And when I do voices, it's really about the approach. Some examples. There's breath hicks and there's just talking. Like, for example, when certain protagonists and antagonists, when they talk, oh, Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. I'll see you soon, sweetheart. Love you, pumpkin. Like, for example, like if I said, "Hey, how you doing?" You see how there was no gasp at the end versus how I said, "Hey, how you doing?" See, like, there's a difference. And a lot of voice actors, especially voice actors that speak English, especially in anime nowadays, they do it with a lot of breath hicks. They tend to do it with a lot of breath hicks and a lot of passion in their voice. Kind of like how Ruben Langdon does his voice acting, and I love it when he used to do voice acting for Ken. And while we're on the subject, the reason why they let him go as the voice of Ken was really silly, because he spoke his mind on how he feels about COVID. And just because he spoke his mind on it, they let him go. They replaced him with David. And I don't think that was fair. Now, I get it. People get replaced in voice acting all the time. But to let him go over that was kind of silly. I love his work as Ken. I really do. I really do. And not just because his kin is similar to my own, and I'm a fan of him as Dante from the Devil May Cry series and franchise. It's because I think he embodies what Ken is supposed to be. Yes, Ken is a hothead, but he is also a family man. He cares about his family. He cares about the bond that him and Ryu share. And I would have loved to see what he would have done with Ken in Street Fighter 6. I had never heard him take on Ken in a serious role unless it was like a movie that had Ken in it. Like the Street Fighter 4 movie. But that basically goes on what I'm saying. Like, they unfairly let him go just because of a matter of opinion. He didn't say anything incorrect or wrong or anything that was against the guidelines or anything. He didn't say anything that was harmful or anything like that. They just was like, "Oh no, um, oh, thanks for the likes." They were just like, "Oh no, we're gonna get rid of you because you're doing something that we don't agree with." So that's what happened. I don't think that was anything that they should have gotten rid of him over. And I don't think that was really fair. Like, like, of all the things they could seriously get rid of somebody for, they just chose to X him out. And people that is on the Twitter wagon, they're like, oh, he needs to go, he needs to be booted out. Like, no. He didn't do anything wrong. And until they reconcile and rectify what they did to him that was wrong, I'm gonna continue to speak on it. Like, the fact that he, got really X'd out of a job is because of an opinion? No, that's not what you do. But there's plenty of things I could always play and listen to him as, his respective characters. But I still would want to hear what he would sound like as Ken, or, what he would have sounded like in the serious role that David is essentially doing for Ken. I mean, it's kind of obvious at this point. I mean, I know when you're voice acting, you gotta try as close as the actor before you, but don't make it blatantly obvious. You know what I mean? Like, when you hear David as Ken, you can tell, like, he's trying to make it his own, but at the same time, he's trying to make it sound like, Ruben Langdon's Ken, and I'm like, what is that all about? And then people trying to tell me that Ruben Langdon is still voicing Ken. I'm like, no way. I can tell that it's not him because I've heard, hey, Mickey, what's going on? I've heard, Ruben do Ken before. Like, I was 17 when, Ruben Langdon had first got the job for Ken. I was 17. I wasn't even 18 yet. And I've been playing with Ken ever since I was a kid, back to when they would just sample a voice and then give it to another character. Because what you gotta understand is, when Street Fighter first came out, the only player you can play with is Ryu, and players who had to play with Ken. And Ken's voice was the same voice actor for Ryu. And in the Champion Edition of Street Fighter 2, the same voice that was for Ryu was for Ken. Until, like, the new challengers and Turbo and things like that. And even whatchamacallit, Dhalsim, the yoga master that has stretchy limbs. When he gets knocked out, the same cry for Ryu is used. He's like, oh! That is sampled because Street Fighter 1 and 2 notification. Street Fighter 1 and 2, they didn't have a lot of voice actors. Like, the voice acting pool for a lot of the cast and the characters were the same voice actors and actresses. Like, when Street Fighter 2 came and Chun-Li was in the game, that was only one voice actor until the new challengers came, then Cammy came, and then there was another female voice actress. And then when whatchamacallit, as the time came on and the series got popular, um, there became more voice actors. And like, say for instance, for those who think that Street Fighter Alpha was only made after the Street Fighter 2 animated movie, I get why a lot of people say that, and I can see both sides. But that's not exactly why Street Fighter Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 and Alpha 3 was made. It was simply made because when Bingus and a bunch of other people got together, they wanted to remake Street Fighter 1. But due to that and the poor reception that Street Fighter 1 has gotten, they're like, oh, you know what? Let's give it a timeline. And they wanted to remake Street Fighter 1 all because the creator and the producer saw fan art of the Street Fighter 1 characters, and that's essentially how that happened. They eventually started making Street Fighter Alpha. It was going to take place before Street Fighter 1 and before Street Fighter 2. During like the beginning stages of Street Fighter 1 and Street Fighter 2. So that's why you saw characters like Adon from Street Fighter 1. You saw Sagat before his Scar. And then when you played the arcade mode, which is essentially the story mode, they canonized a lot of the actual events that happened in the movies and in the series. But there was like, they not necessarily recreated or reimagined them, like they redrawn them in anime form. And not only did it take part in Street Fighter 1 and Street Fighter 2, it took place before the Street Fighter 2 World Warrior tournament. So that's why you saw characters like Guy from Final Fight and Sodom from Final Fight and Cody and other Final Fight characters. And via cheat code, you would see and battle Lucia from Street Fighter 1 and Final Fight 3. And during the Final Fight games, there will be other characters from Street Fighter 1, 2, and they would show up in a cameo and then be an NPC. And for those who don't know what that is, NPC means non-playable character. And guess how many months they had to make the game? They only had 3 months. And a lot of people wanted a third Street Fighter. But Street Fighter 3 was in development and it wasn't finished yet. And it only happened because Street Fighter 3 was still in development and it needed to be worked on because it was half finished and wasn't completely done yet. So that's why they had other Street Fighter properties come out, such as Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter the EX, 1, 2, 3, and Plus EX, Plus Alpha. Those all came out before Street Fighter 3 came out. And when those games came out, a lot of people were happy, but they were disappointed at the same time because the arcade mode was empty because there was no arcade ending. And because they didn't have a planned timeline set in place. And they didn't have time to put the story out and who was going to be rivals with people, but they still had the rivalries in there, but it wasn't documented. It wasn't documented in the story, and a lot of people grew impatient with that because to get all that money back, they had to make different variations. They had to make different variations of the same game. That's why you saw a lot of the Street Fighter 2s, like Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, Street Fighter 2 World Warriors expansion, and then like you would see like Street Fighter 2 The New Challengers and Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Now, a lot of people ask me which is the most definitive way to play it. And to be quite honest with you, the most definitive way, the two definitive ways to play Street Fighter 2 is Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's good to play all of them, but if you want like the characters to have their signature moves that we've come to know and love, you have to play Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And there's a way you can slow down the speed. Because people ask me all the time, what's the difference between hyper fighting and turbo? Well, for turbo, you don't have a fighting chance. In hyper fighting, you have a fighting chance because the thing is slowed down a little bit. It's balanced. It makes it more balanced in how a game should be. And plus, they still have the finisher moves. The finisher moves like the Shinku Hadouken and the Shoryu Reppa and the Tatsumaki, and or the Atatatsuelda, which is now called the Tatsumaki Shinpukakyu, and everybody has their ultimate moves and their super arts. But the most definitive way to play a game, especially Street Fighter 2, is to play Super Turbo with the balancing. And I get why there's so many variations of Street Fighter. I mean, because back then, there was no such thing as downloadable content. There was no such thing as buying packs of something. That officially didn't happen until early 2008 to early 2009. And 2009 and 10 is when it got bigger. Because the reason why this happened is because There was no arcades anymore. Like, there was barely any arcades. If you wanted to go to an arcade, thanks for the likes. Thanks for the likes, Helen. Um, if you wanted to go to the arcade and who is this?
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Dear, we are Ishram.
Yeah. Are you trying to battle or something? Or
Okay.
let's go, guys. Let's do this. Tap the screen. Share the live out.
Everyone, double type. Tap, 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 tap.
What time is it over there?
Okay, bye.
That's fun. Well, like I was saying, um, that's why you would see variations of the same game because they would have different reasons for buying it. That's why you would see a lot of Street Fighter 2s and a lot of the Street Fighter 3s, and they all had something different to them. Like when Street Fighter 3 first came out, it wasn't Third Strike right away. That came later. Um, First it was Street Fighter 3. It was called Street Fighter 3. And they didn't even say Street Fighter. They just said 3. And the reason why that was because a lot of the producers and developers and directors, they didn't know how to specifically make a game. They had they had a lot of work to be done, and they were on a time crunch, and ultimately that failed because a lot of the characters that were in the game from the very beginning, they just scrapped them. They wanted to try a new brand of characters. And when Street Fighter 3 first came out in the arcades, excuse me, um, Ken and Ryu weren't in it. And they ultimately failed at that mistake because you can't always replace characters that's been there from the very beginning, and that is where that could ultimately hurt the franchise. And I get why they did it. I get why they did it because they wanted to try a new protagonist. Because Ryu, he's been in there. Ryu and Ken, they've been in there since the very beginning. There weren't a lot of games where Ken and Ryu weren't in the game. And when they tried it with Alex, the New York wrestler, they ultimately failed at that because a lot of people were thrown off by it because they didn't feel like it was a Street Fighter game because it had nothing familiar. And let me tell you something. Familiarity can go a long way. And if something is familiar, that can also draw somebody in. But if there is nothing there that is familiar to anyone, that's not always going to sell and do well. And that's why you have a lot of games and franchises do well because they choose a formula and they stick with it. And when there's nobody to help you stick with the formula, that isn't going to go well. And unfortunately, for Street Fighter 3 New Generation Second Impact, it didn't go well. And then that's why they brought Ryu and Ken back in. And then they tried to give them more of a sensei role. Because Ryu and Ken, they're pretty much veterans at this point. Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Captain William Guile, and Vega, and Zangief, T-Hawk, Donald Jackson, aka DJ, they're all... Who's this? Oh. Hello?
राजी हैं हफ्ता हो गया लड़ जा मैं जरा दिन मिले नहीं सही
Makes no difference to me. And thanks for the likes. And when Street Fighter 3 first came out, it had a lot to offer, but it didn't really sell well because a lot of the mainstays weren't in the game, but like I was saying prior to that, Vega, Zangief, Ryu, Ken, Akuma, Chun-Li, Cammy White, Captain William Guile, T-Hawk, aka Thomas Hawk, they're all mainstays at this point. They're all mainstays and veterans at this point. So, like, a Street Fighter that doesn't have them in it, it will throw a lot of people off because they're well known. They're interesting characters for a lot of people. There are fans of the characters. Because I'm going to tell you, when I first played Street Fighter 3 Second Impact in the arcade and Ryu and Ken weren't in it, I was mad. Because, like, there's characters that I've come to know and love, and I've gotten, not just used to them, but familiar with their moveset and how to play with them. And then I had to get used to new sets of characters. And it's not that I had anything against the new generation of characters, but it was just the moveset was not working for me. And I mean by that in, like, every character that was new, it felt like a charge character. And then by the time I did figure out the new generation fighters moveset, it was too late at the point. It didn't really keep me invested, and it just didn't work for me. But I still wanted it. I still played it because it was a Street Fighter, and it's a franchise that I grew up with. The very first Street Fighter game I played was Street Fighter 1, 2, and 3, in every variation. The only one that didn't get a variation is Street Fighter 1. Every other Street Fighter up to that point has gotten a variation. There's 3 Street Fighter 5s. There is 4 Street Fighter 4s in a crossover game. And there is 1 Street Fighter 6. And there's going to be another one. Because I don't know if a lot of you noticed, but every time that there's a Street Fighter, there's always going to be some sort of variation. But a lot of people was asking me, do I think there's going to be a variation of Street Fighter 6? Due to the fact that there is always a variation of a Street Fighter, I want to say yes. But then at the same time, I'm going to say no, because there isn't a need per se. But if they do release uh, another Street Fighter 6 and add more characters to it without DLC, it will be a welcomed addition, and I wouldn't mind it, because at the same time it keeps up with the tradition which Street Fighter is known for. There's always multiple versions of Street Fighter, even though for a lot of people they're like, oh, why do that? It's a waste of money when you can work on another game. In some cases you are right. But it doesn't really work. Hello?
Hello,
How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Overpower what you for
Every time they see me about to go for a match, they decline it. Oh man, that's hilarious. Hey, that's Randy. How's it going? But yeah, do I think that there will be variation of Street Fighter 6? Like I said, I want to say yes, but I don't think so because there really isn't a need. And if they do decide to make one, it'll probably be to put characters that should have already been in the game. Like, and people are like, "Oh, what characters that should already be in the game that's going to be in the game later?" Well, first of all, Akuma, and first of all, another character. I mean, first of all, second of all, I think they should have put Guy in here. I mean, Guy in the game because he is referenced throughout the story mode when you are being trained by Kimberly. He mentions him a lot, and usually when there's characters that have a style that is similar to someone else, it tends not to go well. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, because Kimberly, she is a great character. She has a lot of potential that they have something special with her. But from a lot of people and a lot of fans of the Bushimu fighting style, I get why they say, oh, they want to have Guy in here since they have Kimberly in here. They would love to see the reaction if she's really being trained by him because she calls him Master Guy. And to be honest with you, like, I was saying that already. I don't mind having them both in the game. I mean, because to be honest with you, other than Alpha 2, 1, and 3 in Street Fighter 4, Guy hasn't really been in any of the main games other than Street Fighter Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 and Alpha 2 Gold and Alpha 3 and Street Fighter 4. Other than that, he hasn't been in any other Street Fighter games. And neither has Fei Long. And I think it's long overdue. The last game that Fei Long was officially in was Street Fighter 4. He wasn't in Street Fighter 3. He wasn't in Alpha 2, even though he was teased to be in there because he's on the cover art. And there was voice files of Fei Long was supposed to be in the game. He made an appearance in the home console ports of Street Fighter Alpha 3 and the PlayStation version and the PlayStation 2 version and in the PlayStation portable version. He makes an appearance because I've played a lot of the Street Fighter variations. I played Street Fighter Alpha 3 and 2 on PlayStation 1. I played it on PlayStation 2 in the Street Fighter Anthology series. And then I played Street Fighter 4 when it first came out. And I'm always gonna be a part of that. I mean, and being that I'm working on it behind the scenes sometimes, like providing references, voice references for other people to use, that's still an honor to have done that, and I'm still going to be working on it. I can't really say what specific characters or voice lines I'm going to be doing yet, but there are some stuff that I've done, and there's going to be a lot of battle sounds and death sounds, and some screaming of videos that I've recorded of me doing it, so stay tuned for when I post that. And stay tuned for when I make the mini documentary series I got going on about my experience with Colleen Ballinger and Blair Zahn, aka Illuminati. I'm looking forward to finally talking about that and my experience. Back then, I wasn't able to talk about it, and every time I tried to talk about it, they would send cease and desists, which wasn't fair because what I was saying wasn't wrong. I didn't discriminate. I've sent screenshots. I've sent evidence along with Cody. Like when Cody Rants, the YouTuber, when she was in there in the live stream, she bullied Colleen too. Like, and then Colleen thought that she can get away with saying things, and people like Cody and me wasn't going to talk about it. Yeah, Cody, she played a part in it too, but that's what Colleen does. She manipulates people and try to turn it against someone and then make it seem like it's their fault when it's the other way around. It's her fault. And when Adam McIntyre came out, people from Vanity Fair and other article websites and article reporters try to make it seem like that Adam was this monster and who was gaslighting people, when that wasn't the case. There's screenshots, there's evidence, there's videos of you making fun of this kid, there's videos of you making jokes about me, there's videos about you making jokes of my misfortune and then laughing about it and then being rude and belligerent and showing your insolence. And then Colleen got mad because I called her out. She needed to be called out because if she didn't get called out, she would have kept doing it. And that's why after her ukulele apology, that wasn't even an apology because she didn't say, I'm sorry. But that ukulele song that she did, people think that's like the most original song that she's ever written. It's not. Those same chords she used for her husband at the time. Same chords, same tune, but she's got different words. And I called her out because one day at this time she made a joke in her little comedy show about me. And I know it was about me because she goes to the black guy, tells him to get up. They get a chair. And then she's like, "What's the matter, Mysterious Waxen? Do you want to eat a cheese ball and be a part of the audience?" And he says yes, and she says, "Well, you don't get any," knocks the person out of the chair, and then proceeds to act like she's going to step on him. I know what she was trying to say. It wasn't funny. And then she wanted to proceed to mock me about being disabled. And that's why I had to call her out on it. I called her out on it. I called whoever associated with her out on it. Because that's a crime where I am. Like, if you make fun of disabled people, that's a crime. That's a crime, Colleen. And I remember when I first went live on here, for the first and second time, you popped into my live, making jokes. And then, because I respond to you in a way you didn't like, you tried to get me banned. You tried to get me banned, Colleen. I wasn't able to talk about it back then, but I'm able to talk about it now. And, Colleen, what you did was wrong. You need to get help. But by you making jokes of my misfortunes, that's not what you do, Colleen. You're supposed to prove you're a better person. Show you're a better person. Actions speak louder than words. And by you saying what you said, you are gonna understand how it feels to have a misfortune. You might be older than me, Colleen, but I'm old enough now where I can call you out. And those cease and desist you tried to send to me, they've been removed. Those cease and desists you tried to send to me, they weren't enough to stop me. For years, I was holding this in. And I'm not doing this because everybody's talking about it. I'm doing this because you need to be called out. Because you're still doing, you talk about you took a break. And you're trying to take care of your mental health. No, you're not. You are on stage trying to make jokes about me being disabled, and you're still trying to blame Adam for what you've done. And your career as a YouTuber isn't going to be the same. You lost a lot of subscribers. And if you were truly serious about what you've done, and you were serious about apologizing, you wouldn't have put it on your second channel. You have to put stuff like that on your main channel, because it already looks bad. And then the fact that your lawyers told you you can't even talk about it, and then you try to sneak away out of it by singing about it and thinking nobody would notice. Colleen, 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 Colleen. All I want from you is a sincere apology. What you've done to all of us, it wasn't something that was funny. I want a sincere apology. I want a sincere apology on behalf of me and anybody else that was disabled that you made fun of. I want you to apologize to Adam. I want you to apologize to Oliver. I want you to apologize to Ella and anybody else that you have hurt. Because what you've done, thanks for the universe, because what you've done wasn't good. It wasn't good, Colleen. And Johnny. Why did you lie to Swoop? Why did you lie to Swoop? You had over 3 hours. She used her platform to give you a chance to speak. And you lied to her. There's no reason for you to say you want to try to blame somebody from what happened to them and say it's their fault because they fucked around and found out. That's not something you say to a victim that was abused, harassed, and assaulted. And being a victim of all of that and surviving it, that's not something you take lightly, kid. And Swoop, I thank you for all that you've done. I thank you for what you're doing. You're a kind soul. I'm glad you exist on this planet. And I'm glad all of you, the viewers, exist on this planet. And thanks again, Helen, for showing me support and being there for me when I had my little meltdown earlier about Colleen. I really appreciate you. And I love you. And to the person that wanted to battle me earlier, I'm sorry I declined it. I really had to go, and I was not in a good state, and I really didn't feel like being trolled or bullied or anything like that. I'm the original Mysterious Jackson, and I will see you later tomorrow night. Love you guys. Goodbye.